Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Twitter gets the details wrong again. How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We got another Dokkan battle video for you here today. We have the Super EZA details for the Year 2 Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, as well as the STR Omega Shenron Super EZA, and the Sub EZA for the Tech Syn Shenron. So we'll be breaking these down and talking a little bit about the units, how they do, and what we can expect to see from them, when we can expect to see them, and of course we're going to talk a little bit about the age-old Twitter cycle of jumping on a unit the moment the details are revealed, because this is a case, I think, we haven't had one this egregious since STR Gogeta, so we're going to talk about that here. So let's start with the details for the Goku. So Goku is basically doing the same stuff he was doing before, right? Remember, they don't affect super attack effects, so he is on his EZA, his super attack effect. I believe he raises 30% for 6 turns, so he stacks for 6 turns, and he's got key to attack defense 200%. Great chance to perform a critical hit per superclass ally on the turn. He's got attack defense 100% and damage reduction rate 10%. So that's up to 30%. Which, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't have him on a non-superclass team. So that's I mean, just assume 30%. When there's an extreme enemy or when there's another GT hero's ally attacking in the same turn, he gives all allies 40% attack and launches an additional super attack. When attacking with 12 or more key, he is attack 150%. And when receiving an attack as the first or second attacker in the turn, he gets an additional defense 200%. When receiving a super attack, he also gets a temporary 100% defense boost with a 50% chance of nullifying the encountering with tremendous power. So just 50% chance to counter all supers with an extra 100% defense. So on the chance that you don't counter it, depending on the super, he might actually be able to survive it. But I mean, for the most part, 50% chance. Half the time you're going to be seeing that that proc. So honestly, he looks pretty good. And if we take a look here at his defensive calcs here, which I think we pulled him up with Halvard here. So taking a look at his defensive calcs, we are looking at, I know it's kind of hard to see with the way Twitter compresses the image here, but basically without support on his first turn, he's got about 500k defense post super. But again, remember, not only is he getting double super attacks, he's also getting 30% damage reduction. And let's be real, he exists on Gogeta's team. You've got 70% support from Gogeta, and you've got, you know, AGL Super Saiyan 4 Goku as well supporting. So, I mean, it's not like you're not running them on the team. So, when we actually consider that, right, on a full superclass rotation, right, with he actually doesn't have the support here. Oh, he does all the way at the bottom. Okay, so all right, on a full superclass rotation, right, on that first turn, he's got up to 790k defense post super. Once that attack comes in, right, so that's before receiving the attack. Once he receives the attack, it actually jumps up, because remember, he does get an additional boost when being attacked in slot 1 or slot 2. So the reality is, if you got a double super on, or a triple super rather, on turn 1, his actual defense is like 2.3 million, because he is stacking that 30% on it is 30%, right? Yeah, 30% for 6 turns. That is correct. So yeah, so since he's getting that, it actually jumps up to 2.3 million. Right by his next turn, he gets a third effect stack. Right, he gets 2.3 starting, and then up to 3.5 on that turn. And again, this is all without support when receiving a super attack, or when receiving an attack. Now, if you happen to receive its super attack at any point of that, add 100% to that, and he's up to 4.6 million. Now, all of this is without Gogeta support. Assume you're going to have Gogeta support. he's actually up to 5.7 million when receiving in a super attack. However, minus 100% for that, really, you're like 4.7 million if it's not receiving a super attack, right? With AGL Super Saiyan 4 Goku support and his SA support, the turn, you are looking at 7.3 million, and again, minus 100% from that, more like, 6.3 million at the end of that, which is still really good with 30% damage reduction. And any other support pushes this guy well into the 7 million range. So the reality is the Goku is pretty good, and since he is a defense stacker, right, he can take a few turns to get going, but once he gets going, he's in a pretty good spot. The only thing about him is he kind of wants to be remaining in slot 2, right? So you got to keep this guy on rotation. Obviously, he's not going slot 1, although he kind of can in some cases, right? With that start of turn, again, when we look at Halvard's calcs here, right, by the end, right, we're 3.9 million start of turn defense, like, he could probably slot 1 in a couple situations. So, Goku is pretty good. Compare that to the Vegeta. Now, word of caution, Vegeta is actually mistranslated here. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. So, Vegeta gets key to an attack and defense 200%, launches an additional attack that has a great chance of becoming a super attack. Per superclass ally attacking in the same turn, he gets 100% attack and defense, damage reduction rate 10%. And when GT heroes or extreme class enemy, you get defense 40% for all allies and guaranteed crits. When attacking with 12 or more key, 100% attack, and as the second or third attacker in the turn, he gets attack and defense 100%. And when receiving a super attack, right, same thing as the Goku, 100% defense temporarily and 50% chance to counter. Now the Vegeta, opposite the Goku, is raising attack for 6 turns, so he can actually get a little more offensive. Now the thing about the Vegeta, all right, is this wording here. So as the second or third attacker in the turn. So in order to understand Vegeta, you have to understand that this line here, the way it's written in English, would indicate that this is actually the first part of his passive, which means it applies to his start of turn defense. But as many have pointed out, especially on the JP side of things and a lot of others, is that the actual Japanese translation is actually more akin to the way, say, for example, Hit and God Goku's defense and attack raises are worded. If you guys have ever used Hit and God Goku, you know that the third slot placement, there is a huge jump in stats because of that, because of the way that's worded. Here, let's see if we can actually pull them up. Let's see here. Alright, so if we take a look here at Hit and God Goku, we can see that their third attack passive, right, is written this way. As the third attacker in a turn, they get that extra 170% attack buff, right? That is a big... Or even this part here, right? As the second or third attacker, it's the same thing, right? Or first or second attacker, right? It's the same phase of the passive, right? The phase 2 of the passive, as opposed to phase 1, which makes it part of his start of turn defense. It seems to be worded this way in Japan, very, very similarly, which means the global translation is actually incorrect. And what the incorrect global translation has actually led to is actually much, much, much lower calcs, right? When not receiving a super attack, it barely puts Vegeta above 1.8 million, and then if you happen to have Super Saiyan 4 Goku on rotation, you are looking at 2.3 million, which isn't terrible with 30% damage reduction, but it really doesn't tell his whole story. He's actually much, much higher than this, and I do think somebody did. I'm gonna actually pull up the comments here. I think someone here did post the correct calcs. No, it doesn't look like it. But I did see the correct calcs, and what his actual calcs look like is like, he's actually getting closer to Goku's defense, like just not quite the 7 million range, but still like the 5 to 6 million range. Like this AGL Goku support actually puts him closer to, 4 million or so without receiving a super attack and the 40% support. So it actually means he's much, much better. And as a third slot floater that's raising attack, that's honestly not that terrible for him. Since, right, like he's not, everything he's getting on his defense is based on the slot, not his actual attack, because he's not raising based on the attacks that he does. So I just want to point that out, right? This is one of those situations, well, yes, you know, there was some mistranslation here. It would appear there was some mistranslation. The entirety of Twitter jumped at the case for this guy, right? Like, just talking about how awful he is. And it's one of those things where, like, had you just sat back and waited, we really would have been able to very quickly see that this was incorrect. Like, because anybody who saw the numbers here would be like, this just is not right. There's no way they would have made him this bad in comparison to the Goku. And sure enough, right, it would come out in not even an hour after, really. It would come out that he's actually much, much better, and this is simply due to a very, very poor wording issue on the global side of things. It's not the first time global's done this either, by the way, but it's also not the first time that we as a community just cannot hesitate to jump at the details and start calling units awful. This is one of the main reasons. Like, this right here should be a prime example of why when a unit detail is released, we need to take a step back a minute, read it, understand it, and give it a few days till they're in game, and then apply it, right? Because this jumping the gun is leading to these crazy assumptions about unit performance, right? And the reality is, like, had we just waited, we would have seen something much closer to what we were getting with Goku. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that maybe this is a lesson for all of us, that we don't need to jump on the Twitter hate train every chance we get. Now, moving on to the other two EZAs, we do have the Super EZA SCR Omega Shenron. This dude is getting 150% attack and defense. He's giving all enemies attack minus 40% and defense minus 20% for superclass enemies, so that's kind of helpful there on enemies that can be debuffed. He gives full power or GT bosses, category allies, key 2, and 40% attack, and an additional 20 for people for characters who are also on extreme class. So basically 60% attack for extreme class characters is really helpful for Omega's team, by the way. Per extreme class ally attacking the same turn, self-excluded, he gets a 20% damage reduction and chance for one critical hit. So basically 40% crit and 40% damage reduction, and then attack defense 100% when attacking. When there is another full power or GT bosses category ally attacking in the same turn, he gets attack defense 150%, launches an additional attack that has a great chance of becoming a super attack, and when attacking with 12 or more key, he gets 100% attack and defense. And as the third attacker in the turn, or when the target enemy is attack down or defense down, he gets 150% attack and launches an additional super attack. Now, the thing with this guy, again, he, you know, with super EZAs, they don't change the super attack effects. So on, you know, he's not doing anything crazy. In fact, I don't think he gets any defense on his super attack effect, if I remember correctly. But he does lower enemies' defense. I think it's a greatly lower. Yeah, it is a greatly lower defense. So very, very helpful, but most of his defense is going to be coming from his allies via their support, his own support, and then his passive here. So honestly, I mean, I see this guy, he's probably going to be a third slot floater on his team, focusing on debuffing the enemy, which is really, really nice. I do like that. 40% decrease in attack is huge, right? This basically renders Goku black inert in the stage 1 of the special battles. Like that's how powerful this is. So very, very helpful. And then of course the defense lowering helps deal with Zamas. Now if we were to take a look at his calcs here, let's see, let's scroll down here. All right, so if we were to take a look at his calcs here, since he's not getting anything on his super attack, his max defense is actually kind of, you know, not that great, right? Like at best post super, with 40% support and double Omega support, meaning it's like your second turn with him, meaning, right, you've got the first Omega up, the second Omega up, and then so they're both supporting him. He's at about 2.7 mil with his damage reduction, which is not crazy, but as a third slot floater, it's going to be, I mean, as the third slot floater on a team that's debuffing the enemy, it's going to be more than fine. And then also consider that the two Omegas are also giving an additional damage reduction, so that means his actual total damage reduction, right, if you have both Omegas up, that's a 10% extra damage reduction each. That actually brings his damage reduction to 60%. So I mean, that's not terrible. That's 60% damage reduction with 2.7 mil. That's going to be pretty good. So definitely liking what I'm seeing with Omega. He's going to be very helpful in those debuffable fights. Up next, we have the Tech Sen, and a lot has changed for him because he's actually an actual EZA. Well, he's a sub EZA, but an actual EZA. So a lot is actually changing from him. So he's going to get bumped up to 150% for his GT bosses lead, and I believe his super attack effect is bumping up to a greatly raise for the turn, so that's very helpful. He is getting a lot going on. Remember, if you remember how he originally worked, he was a lot based on key spheres, and even more so now. So he's going to randomly change key spheres of a certain type to rainbow key spheres. He's going to get key 2 and attack defense 150% with a high chance of forming a critical hit and a high chance of launching an additional attack. And for one turn for him in his entry turn, he's got 40% damage reduction. Now this is huge because turn 1 is for Omega's team. Turn 1 is kind of the scariest turn before you get both Omegas up and running. It's kind of like the trio. Right, that first opening turn can be kind of rough for them, but once they get going, it's they're unstoppable. Now, when attacking, they disable the enemy's guard and has 150% attack and defense per key sphere obtained, up to 350%. So 350% divided by 50. So basically, in order to max him out, you need 7 key spheres. So that's honestly not that bad, right? I mean, it sucks that they didn't make him a full nuker, but you know, with 350% is still pretty good. He has, I think, who else do we have that has that ability? AGL Vegeta has that ability too, where it caps out after a certain amount. Now, with 2 or more key spheres, he gets an additional damage reduction rate. With 3 or more key spheres, he gets an additional critical hit 20% on top of the high chance that he's got, so that gives him a 70% chance. And then with 4 or more key spheres, he's got another 20%. So the first turn, you can get up to, what is that, 80% damage reduction on the first turn. After that, you're looking at a, you know, standard 40% with 4 or more key spheres, which is pretty easy to do with rainbow orb changers. With 5 or more key spheres, he gets another 30% critical hit, which basically gives him guaranteed crits. With 6 or more key spheres, he launches an additional super attack, and with 7, he lowers the enemy's attack and defense by 20% for 2 turns. Now that is a great ability right there, allowing the debuff to last for more than just the turn. So that's very, very helpful. So is there anything more to his passive here? No, that's it to the passive. So honestly, this is pretty good. It makes him incredibly defensive. With the extra 350%, he's going to be getting some good defense with 40% damage reduction or 80% on turn 1, which again is that's the turn you really need it for Omega's team. So taking a look at his calcs here. All right. Standard 7 key on turn 1, you're looking at 3.1 million defense with 80% support, right? That's crazy. Assuming it's, you know, let's say he shows up turn 2 with both Omegas up, you're getting 100% damage reduction, mind you. Like if he turns it, so let's say you have 1 Omega on turn 1, you have another Omega on turn 2, and then this guy shows up on turn 2 with that Omega, he's got 100% damage reduction, right? Because each Omega is giving him an extra 10%. So the reality is, on average, he's going to have 60% if you're getting your 7 key spheres, and then any extra additional support on top of the Omega support. Remember, the Omega support is that 70% plus his domain. I don't think this is factoring Omega's domain either. This is only factoring his support. So it's actually going to be much, much higher than this. But with 40% support, you're looking at 5.3 million with all 7 key spheres obtained. And again, even higher with the domain active, because I don't think Halvard calculates this with the domain here, or at least it's not specifically mentioned. And I think he usually does if he does calculate domain. So honestly, he's really good. He's probably, if I'm not, well, let's check. I think he does mention it here. Yeah. Okay, he doesn't have the domain active here. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I do think Texan is the best of these guys, which it does make sense. He is sort of the prime sub-EZA here out of these, whereas the others are super EZAs. And I know people have a high expectation for super EZAs, but the reality is, like, we're looking at units that are basically free every other month. So I have been noticing that they have, I don't want to say holding back, but they're definitely not putting them comparable to the LRs that they're releasing with when it comes to these super EZAs. And I think, again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that these guys are basically freely available every other month or so. And I mean, the Omega Shenron looks pretty good. He's going to be great for Omega's team, so even without the linking partners. So I wouldn't worry too much about him. But these guys, I think, are going to be fighting for positions on the GT Heroes team, just because that team is kind of stacked right now, and it has nothing to do with their how good they are or their viability, but just that team is really friggin' stacked right now. So I just want to end with, again, a firm reminder that give it time. When these details come out, give it time. Read, digest it. This is one thing I do like about some of the newer release times for these details is used to be I was at home and I'm getting the details right away. Now I have time to kind of digest before I start reading through the details again and start exploring through my video, and it's allowing me to see a lot better, and I recommend it for a lot of people to, you know, give the EZAs a better chance, because this once again we've been proven that jumping on that train immediately ends up biting us in the butt. So guys, that is it for the video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and in the comments down below, let us know, what do you think of these super EZAs and the sub EZA Texan? I think they're all great. I think they're all going to have spots on this team, although I do think the 2 Super Saiyan 4s are fighting for spots, just because the team is so stacked as it is. But Omega and Sen, I think they're going to slide right on into the GT Bosses team. But let us know what you think in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.